Okay, so we're going to be talking about using cloud application services. And the idea is during the day we've been looking mostly at standard out-of-the-box MVC or Web Forms app and deploy it to Azure. That's a huge favorite feature of mine, that you can be an Azure developer without being an Azure developer, right? So you can build a standard ASP.NET app, deploy it to Azure websites, you're done. And you can scale it up and you're good. But one of the nice features of working with Azure is that you can take advantage of cloud application services if you want. So you could always, build a web app and scale it up to multiple servers. But you still run into problems. You still have things like you've got multiple servers, but they need to talk with different things. Do they share a database? Do they maybe have caching? Do they each have their own cache? Do you cache in a database? That's not efficient. And so there are a lot of services that you can turn on as you need them in Azure. So that's kind of the idea is, start simple and then turn on things as you need them. So we're going to be looking at, this is kind of short on time, so I'm going to be showing mostly like a before and after, an Azure makeover of a site. So we're going to look at a Twitter reader app, and we're going to see, how it works in the simple case, and then we're going to go to a more advanced case, taking care of some features. Before I do that, something just crossed my mind, and I want to remember, because I've had this in my browser every single session after it was asked, which is, can I use a CDN with bundling? I think that was over here somewhere. Maybe. So yes, you can, and there's actually support built in. So I'm at asp.net/mvc/tutorials, and we have it's organized. You can kind of guess your way through a lot of the links on the asp.net site. But if you just go to the ASP MVC area, there's a tutorial on using bundling. And this shows that you can define a CDN path, and then you can add, you can say, this is my local JavaScript reference, and this is my CDN reference. So, sorry, completely non sequitur there, but I just wanted to, it would have driven me crazy if I'd never gotten back to that. So, okay, so we're looking at building blocks. So here are a bunch of things you can turn on. Big data, there's support for Hadoop. Database, so there's SQL data. You have a very advanced SQL support. You can have federated databases, all kinds of stuff. Storage is a more kind of lightweight, more like a NoSQL. Storage is more for storing data. Okay, let me see. Mobile. Mobile is a fun new one. Who here saw Scott Guthrie's, or the keynote at Build where they were looking at mobile services? Nobody? So mobile services is, pay attention to mobile services. It's named in a way you think, mobile services, I'm not building a mobile app, or it sounds kind of generic. Mobile services is a really slick way to store data from an application, and here's the key thing, I think, it's segmented by user. So you can say, I have a logged in user, they're authenticated maybe by Facebook, and I want to store some information for them. So with mobile services, you can say it's like a one line of code, store some data. And mobile services will automatically, like you pass data up in a loose format, a dynamic format, and it'll figure out, okay, this is the schema, and it'll save that. And there's the demo that they did during Build, I think this was the day 2 keynote, really pretty slick. It's worth watching. Caching we'll look at, service bus. We may look at identity. Media is another thing that we looked at during Build, day 2 keynote, where actually during the keynote, Scott Guthrie had a tablet, took a picture, or took a video, a live video. It was uploaded over Wi-Fi, which was kind of scary. If you think deploying an app, at a WebCamp is scary over Wi-Fi, talk about, at Build with thousands of people in the room uploading a video. But so media services will host video and will transcode it. So you can say, I'm uploading this in some weird format, and media services will say, that's fine. You've said that you want it to be available for smooth streaming over Flash and Silverlight, or you want it available for HTML5 or whatever combination. It'll transcode it, and it'll set up those streaming video servers for you. What's nice is, like so many of these things, these building blocks, sometimes you need them, sometimes you don't. So maybe an event like today, we'd want to live video stream, and then after the event's over, we don't need it. So instead of setting up streaming servers ourselves and doing all this configuration and paying for storage space and all this stuff, spin it up, the day's done, spin it down, and you pay for just what you use. So we're going to look, first of all, at caching and storage in this application. So we'll start with our naive implementation. So this is a Twitter reader. Okay. So here we have this thing. It says get tweets, and it calls out to. It does a Twitter call. So I'll run this. So in this is running locally, and this is actually a cloud application. So this is using the cloud application emulator on my machine. So I'll say I would like some tweets for Windows Azure. So it's actually doing a query, and this took 2,800 milliseconds. If I refresh, 1,700 milliseconds. 1,600, right? So this is not optimal because we hit Twitter every single time. So we are going to use caching. So I'll show you how that looks. Here we've enabled a caching service. So let's take a look at our NuGet packages. Again with the NuGet, I know, but this is really a great way to add in all kinds of stuff. So here we've added a Windows Azure caching NuGet package. And then within our application, we do, oops, that is, I don't even know what that is. Okay. Then within our application, we're able to say datacache.cache equals blah, blah, blah. And so we do a query. This is a good overall caching pattern when you're retrieving something from a cache. First you try and retrieve it from the cache. If it's not found, you get it and add it to the cache. Right? So the first time we try and request, we don't get the tweet. So here was the original, where we just said, tweets get tweet. So that's the very simple implementation. Here we say, try and retrieve from the cache. If it's not there, get it and add it to the cache. So now, rather than run this locally, I've actually deployed this out to Azure. I did this yesterday evening, and I did this for a good reason. Because I wanted to be collecting data, and I'll show you that in a second. So now, my first run, it's taking a bit. I may not have hit it for a while. I'm going to close it and there it is. So 5 milliseconds. Okay. So what this was doing is these were already cached from earlier. And so these are taking like 0.5 milliseconds because every query is retrieving from cache. So here now I'll look at Brady's. I've also queried for Brady earlier. So, actually that was out of cache. So this is 1.7 seconds. So if I refresh it again, 2.1. So and now I'll do a request for me. Okay, so again, 1.7 seconds, but now it's 0.5. So this is just a very simple thing, but it's a lightweight. I just turn it on, and there it works. Any questions on that? I kind of flew through it, but yeah.
Is the data cache, I'm assuming it's thread safe?
Yes. Right. Yeah. Now, we've also added one other thing in here. Actually, I'm going to skip over and I'm going to show you how we've deployed this and taken advantage of another cool feature, which is the store. So the idea with the store is there's a lot of services that are built in for Windows Azure. But there are a lot of other things you may want that are provided by somebody else. So there have already been things like this. For instance, you can deploy WordPress out of the box. If I wanted to create a new WordPress app, I'd say new website, and I can do from gallery. And if I do from the gallery and pick WordPress, it's actually going to install PHP, which is hosted by an external PHP or external MySQL provider. So we've already had some of this, but what was shown at Build is this whole like a much more complete example of that. So if I want to add a new, this is an add-on, so I say I want a new store app, and I don't know if so here are some things here. It's still probably a little difficult to read, but we've got things like address checking, Bing Search API. There's a Translate API. So, Translate allowing you to pass data in and have it translated for you, of course. There's also, so there's tons of them. They're divided up by app services and data. Things like data, again, you have like, translation or address lookup. If you look at app services, a neat one here is SendGrid. So what SendGrid solves for you is the problem of reliable data or reliable email delivery. If you've ever had to send email from a web application and really cared if the email got to your users, you've probably seen that's pretty difficult. A lot of them get picked up by spam. If you send too many, you'll get flagged, or it'll be shown that you're a spammer. It's very easy to get picked up as a spammer. So SendGrid, this is their entire job, is reliable email delivery. So you can set this up, and they actually have a free level of service. There's also this one called New Relic. What New Relic does is they offer site monitoring. It's a very, very rich site monitoring. So they have a standard account that's free. I could also, if I wanted more full-featured, really in-depth monitoring, then you can pick, Pro or Pro 5. What's nice with this is that it automatically is hooked up with my Azure account. So instead of having to manage several different accounts, one with Azure and one with New Relic and one with SendGrid and all this stuff, this automatically gets added to and billed by Azure. So I have just one provider and I'm buying everything through that store. Does that make sense? Questions? No? All right, so let's take a look at how I configured that then for this one. So I added this, and when you first install it, you install it via a NuGet package. So I'm going to go back over to my site here. And they actually have some information here if I go New Relic. So they have a specific NuGet package just for installing Windows Azure. And they have some instructions that are shown in here. So install package, New Relic, Windows Azure. But when you do that, it'll pop up a thing and it'll say enter your license key. And what's nice with that is if I've added it via the store here, right when I create it, it has a thing where it'll show this connection info and it'll show my license key. So it'll allow me to get my license key and stuff right off of there. I'm not going to show it to you guys. So then finally, once I've installed it, inside my application, so I'm going to search for New Relic. Inside my application, I have added, there it is. I've added in a few calls that they've provided, so newrelic.api.agent, blah, 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 but I'm basically saying get timing header. So this is instrumenting my code, and it's passing additional information. Now, even if I didn't put this in there, they still pick up some information from my site. But by adding this, so I say get timing header, and I have another one in here that says get timing footer. So now let's see if this is worth the effort. So I click on Manage. And what they do is Azure single sign-on authenticates me over to New Relic. So I think if I blow that up, it's a little easier to see. So this is showing me real-time stats for my site. This is saying things like, here if I click on the browser, I can see how many hits I'm getting. So that's kind of obvious stuff. I can see, I can click on map, and I can have that drill in more into my application. So this will show, by calls, for instance, my calls over to api.twitter.com, how long those took, or how long my calls to storage took, or how much was cached, that kind of stuff. If I go back over here to the browser, I can also drill in and I can see worldwide, so who's been browsing my site. And if you're a fan of Canada, you might be surprised to see that they are by far the winner of this challenge. So that's what's been going through there. And you can also drill in deeper by geography, and you can see for a specific area within the U.S. which state or that kind of thing. One other thing that's kind of cool, if I can find it here, if I go to events and I can click, I can see error rate. My code's perfect, so no errors. I can also go in and see transactions. So I can dig in and I can find out specifically what was called. So for instance, in this, I can say inside my Twitter feed, I get a breakdown, and this, I think this is kind of mind-blowing. This is actually showing inside my app what was taking along by method call. So you actually see like which handlers were taking a while. You can see which calls within my application were taking a while. So this is literally something, Brady and I sat in the hotel lobby and coded this up in a few minutes last night. So this is, it's slightly more than I'd want to deploy during a 30-minute or 40-minute talk, but it's not hugely complicated. Both of us, when we were done, were like, wow, that was actually pretty easy. So the steps there for getting New Relic going was I first went in to the store and added it. And that popped up a page in my browser that said, great, here are the steps for putting this to use. Step 1, install this NuGet package. It'll tell you you need this license key. Here's what it is, that kind of stuff. So we put that in my code. I then put those two calls inside my layout, my MVC layout, where I said add this timing header and footer, timing footer. And that was it. Deployed it back to Azure. And that was it. And then from that point on, it's being instrumented, and I've got really pretty rich analytics into the app. Any questions on that? I think that is very slick. I'm looking forward to it now. Seeing, are they going to add some more things? I would expect so. So like things like credit validation or address validation or all these sorts of things that are painful to do yourself, where you need to call out to some service, and those are all hooked up for you.
So I should point out that not all of these add-ons are available in Canada.
That is true. Yep.
They're US only, so.
I think some, and I don't have the breakdown. We're going to look into that, but I think some are being added on. I don't know the exact. Yeah. So that is the thing was if you go in and try and add them in a subscription, you'll see whether or not you have access or what you have access to. So this is something that was just announced at Build, and they said this is something we're adding over time. So it's still kind of being turned on. But I think the idea with that and why we wanted to show it is during this is the idea of start with a simple web forms MVC app, deploy it, run it on websites. As it grows, you can scale it up. And then later, as things get bigger, you can turn on things like SignalR. As Brady was showing, you can turn on these app services, cloud services, and start really adding a lot to it.
I should clarify that. None of them are available in Canada.
None of them, yeah, Party Pooper, I know, that's as of now. So I don't know. Brady, do you have any information on when they're being or anything being added, store stuff?
I don't.
Yeah. 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 No, Azure Store.
Store.
Yeah.
I think that they're adding on a continual basis, like as vendors come on.
The question is though about Canada.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they're going to open it as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah. Humanly possible. There's the disclaimer. Yeah, yeah.
Excuse me.
Yes.
So the Azure store over here, the Azure store then is a third-party place where we could, in theory, build things and put up for other people to purchase
No,
as well?
no. So the question is, is this a store where we can sell stuff? I mean, if you're a really big vendor, maybe, but the idea is not that you're selling your apps on the store. It's more, I need to do credit card processing, and I would like it to work I would like to turn on this app service inside my Azure application.
Okay, so would that imply that the apps that are available in the Windows Store have been vetted to an extent?
Yes, absolutely.